Hello, welcome to the Lansweeper OT training video where I'll be covering what OT scanning does for you and also showcase what the OT scanning interfaces look like. So to start, why would you be scanning OT? Well, obviously OT is something that's critical to your environment if you have any OT, if you're in one of those sectors, because it runs and controls your environment. Usually some kind of manufacturer environment, but also other types of environment like energy where automation is also included. It runs the machines, it controls everything. So it's important that you make sure that your OT devices, one, that you know which OT devices that you have, but also what version they're running, what kind of components they have, so that you have that full overview of exactly what kind of devices that you have in your OT environment. So to do that, we're going to head into Lansweeper and take a look at how you can do your scanning, how you can scan your PLCs, your RTUs, your remote IOs, your BMS, BAS, energy monitoring, all those acronyms, everything combined, everything you have in your environment, how you can scan it. Let's head into the hub, so the on-premise component of the OT scanning, and take a look what it looks like there. So here on the on-premise interface where we have our hub installed, we have the OT hub. So we can see basically what a quick overview of what our environment looks like. We have some manufacturers, some models listed here, as well as how many sensors we have, how many protocols we have, what kind of scan targets, and a number of assets that we have. All of these are clickable, by the way. So if you want to quickly navigate to something, you can head over there. But first, we're going to go to the scan targets, where under we have two options, basically default, which is more of like a broad discovery method. It lets you, and let's quickly head into that, it lets you quickly create a scan for the subnet that the sensor or that a sensor is installed in. Is basically a broad sweep, and it uses all of the protocols that we have available to kind of quickly discover your environment that you have a sensor installed in. However, since it does scan or use all of the protocols, it might not be suited for everyone. As we know, some of the OT devices might be not that comfortable with being probed by a bunch of different protocols. So that's why we have the advanced tab where you can specifically select what you want to scan. So if I quickly open one here, a new scan, you can obviously enter an IP range or a single IP. You can select when, and then you can select a specific protocol you want to use to scan that IP or IP range, so that you're not potentially doing anything wrong to your OT devices if they might be sensitive to kind of random probing over the network. And I've added a couple of examples here of some of the devices that I have in my OT environment. And if I head over to assets, we can get kind of the overview of all of the OT devices that have been picked up. Then if I want to get a view of these, I can head over into the details, where you can see that I get all kinds of details here, going from the basics like IP and MAC address to more like the name, obviously manufacturer and model, serial number, firmware, which is an important one when you want to look at things like vulnerabilities, and making sure that any kind of bugs that might be present in the OT device software or firmware are fixed as well. We get additional information here as well, and we get an overview of all of these slots that are in our OT device. So we can see here the different slots that we have, and also details on each firmware, which firmware version that slot is running, also the serial number, what kind of component it is, what kind of model. So lots and lots of details here to work with. And all of these can be viewed, in this case, locally. They're viewed one by one, so you can go through them each on their own and take a look at them. There are additional options here as well for scanning. So if you want to change schedules, if you want to take a look at protocols, things like that, you can do that. And obviously, to get the maximum out of the OT scanning, you will have to link it to your Lansweeper Cloud site, so that you can then use the Lansweeper Cloud site to go more into reporting and getting a better overview of your OT environment. So with that, I think it's a good segue to head over to our Lansweeper Cloud site and take a look at how we do reporting on OT devices there. So here we are in the cloud environment, where I'm in just my inventory tab. As you can see here, we've already split up assets between IT and OT assets. So if you have OT assets, you'll be able to quickly navigate to them using that tab. Obviously, I have quite a list here because they're coming from different hubs as well. So I have more than what you've just seen in my local interface. And if I navigate to basically the same asset as I've just shown, this is the same information, it's just displayed differently, a bit more easier on the eyes. So you can see here that you have the basic same information as the IP MAC address, model, all that stuff. And then we can also go to the rack config as I've just shown, where you can browse through the different components that are in that rack to show those different items as well. Now, looking at these one by one is all fine, but obviously we want to get a better overview of our environment, where if we head over to the dashboard, you also have a OT overview widget, or dashboard, I should say, where you can see a couple of widgets that give you an overview of your dashboard or of your OT devices, where you can see how many drives, how many software, how many controllers have I scanned with OT scanning, as well as what kind of protocols you've been using on your OT scanner. And if you want to get into even more details, that's where we head into reporting itself. So under reports, we do have an OT category that has a couple of OT overview reports. But aside from that, we also have more specialized report when it comes to actual vulnerabilities and security. Then we head over to the security tab, where under vulnerabilities, you also find, aside from just IT vulnerabilities, there are also a couple of OT vulnerabilities in there as well. For example, we have a Mitsubishi Electric one over here, but I don't think this one has any results. Let's take a look and see if we run it right now. Don't think we are vulnerable to this one. Nope. So let's see if we can find one where we are vulnerable. And we can take a look here at this Rockwell Automation one. There we do have 2 devices here that are vulnerable to this vulnerability. And then again, similar to any report within Lansweeper, obviously, if you want to take a more closer look at the device's specific details, you can do so by clicking on it. And then again, just as I've shown just now, you can take a look at all the details here. And make sure that you update this device, and then it will automatically be removed from that report. So you can kind of manage potential vulnerabilities in your OT environment as well by having that complete overview of all of your OT devices, as well as their firmware, which is important in that case, so that you are ensuring that your OT environment is as secure as your IT environment as well. So with that being said, and having shown everything, I think everything of OT is being covered, and you can head over to the next video to learn even more.